Welcome to the Becoming Your Best Version podcast. I am your host, Maria Leonard Olson. I'm a civil litigation attorney in Washington, D.C., a podcaster, author, two-time TEDx speaker, and mentor to women in recovery. You can learn more about me at marialeonardolson.com. And if you would hit the like on my TEDx talk, my most recent one, an editor's pick about the risks of taking DNA tests. Also, if you would subscribe to and like this podcast, and maybe even review my book, 50 After 50, Reframing the Next Chapter of Your Life. I started this podcast 6 years ago because my work in the realm of women in midlife brought me into contact with amazing women who have inspired me and I think will inspire you. Today, joining us from New Orleans is Sandy Rosenthal. With corporations getting even larger and even able to influence the outcome of presidential elections, the power of a single individual might seem lost, but it is alive and well. Sandy Rosenthal is an experienced community mobilizer, most notable for founding the nonprofit called Levees.org, Levees.org, with 25,000 supporters nationwide. With her book, Words Whispered in Water, she explores how she, against all the odds, altered the national narrative about the deadly flooding in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. In Words Whispered in Water, Why the Levees Broke in Hurricane Katrina, Sandy gives a first-person narrative of the 2005 flooding and its aftermath, thrusting her into her role as a leading voice for fact-based responses to flood threats. She describes her transformation into an advocate for education on the history of flood control failures after Hurricane Katrina had moved inland, and her subsequent work as a watchdog, tracking the responses of government and media in the hours, weeks, and years after the floodwalls first gave way. A special anniversary edition of her book, featuring a new cover and foreword, went on sale this August, timed with the 20th anniversary of the catastrophe. The catastrophic flooding of New Orleans in 2005 brought levees into the public consciousness. Yet flooding now seems to be happening almost everywhere. The majority of the nation's population lives in counties protected by levees. Sandy's organization brings awareness to the dangers posed by this situation. Her organization has a strong physical presence in New Orleans, including the Flooded House Museum and the Levee Exhibit Hall at a major breach site. The organization also has installed 3 historic plaques vetted by the state's preservation office and hosts an annual levee breach bike tour, among other public education efforts. For these efforts, Rosenthal has received numerous awards, including Outstanding Social Entrepreneur of the Year from Tulane University and Most Influential Woman from Mount Holyoke College. She is an advocate for the 62% of American population living in counties protected by levees. Has been married since 1979 and has 3 adult married children and 2 grandchildren. She's the co-host of her own podcast called The Slingshot and host of the former Beat the Big Guys podcast. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. You are such a brave person. And I guess I want to start with what was the igniting moment that made you decide to fight the Army Corps of Engineers?
Well, thank you for calling me brave at the time when almost everyone I knew had lost their home, their neighborhood, and in many cases, loved ones. I didn't feel that brave. I felt I was doing what needed to be done. And no one else was going to do it, so I had to. But what made me decide to do that? A heated argument with uh, a gentleman who believed that Hurricane Katrina is the reason that all of the levees broke and that nothing could be done. And we, the citizens of New Orleans, should not have been living there. And therefore we were, didn't deserve help. We shouldn't have been there.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
hearing that from, this is just weeks after the disaster, and hearing it from someone in Louisiana, in the state where I live, only about 2 hours from my hometown. Well, that did it. I'm not saying that, I'm not going to say to your listeners that anger is the best motivator. However, it's a good one. It's a very
Mm.
effective one. Maybe not the best, but so that's what it was. And interestingly, I don't know the name of the man that I got into that argument with, because if I were to see him today, I would thank him because he put me on the straight and narrow path to you today.
Wow, wow, wow. So, what was the big mistake that the Army Corps made?
They made several, but the biggest mistake they made was doing the same thing that the engineers did in Russia, which caused Chernobyl, and they were looking for ways to save money.
Mm,
Anyone who's watched the Chernobyl miniseries or read the story, what happened was they were looking for ways to save money, and those pods, those rods, excuse me, that were supposed to go into the Chernobyl into the reactor to avoid the meltdown, they were made of a less expensive material, and they didn't work.
mm,
And therefore, we have the disasters. They were looking for ways to save money, and we all do that every day. I
yeah.
mean, that's why you shop sales.
Mhm.
What the first thing you do when you walk into the grocery store. But in this particular case, the Army Corps of Engineers was behind schedule. They had just gotten a verbal lashing, a tongue lash they call it, from Congress, telling them, "Hurry up! You're going too slow. We need to get this flood protection finished on time for the next hurricane." So they did a study and wrongly determined that they only needed to drive steel sheet piling into the ground 15 or 16 feet instead of 50, as in 50.
Mm.
They thought that driving the steel sheet piling deeper was just a waste of money. It wasn't going to have a bigger difference. So they sent out new guidances. All those levees in New Orleans were all short sheeted, and that is the main reason that they fell over when Katrina's storm surge arrived. At the main one, the most major breaches where most of the people were, that was the reason. But the Army Corps, you know what they say, the worst thing you can do is hide the truth, the cover up, that the cover up can be worse than the crime. They
Mhm.
made a mistake.
Yeah.
They didn't plan to drown people. They made a mistake, but they covered up that mistake. And they kept that secret for as long as they could, until eventually, people like myself dug up the truth and started screaming from the bully pulpit, and they were discovered. But it took a while. I mean,
So
this information was hard to find.
yeah. So were people held accountable for the mistakes?
No one at the Army Corps of Engineers lost so much as a parking spot.
Mm.
By the time this information was dug up, the Katrina lawsuit was already over. The Army Corps was absolved from responsibility. Well, they were held responsible, but they were legally declared not needing to provide any financial remuneration due to the flood control of 1928, which said the Army Corps of Engineers cannot be held accountable if its flood protection projects fail.
Oh my gosh. So
Mhm.
then what was your shining moment in exposing this bad behavior?
Let me see. There were many. I'm trying to think what's the best moment in exposing the. Oh, I got it. I got it. Okay. So this is going back a few years, back to 2008. And those were the days when some of your listeners may remember we had something called anonymous commenting. You could go online and leave a comment anonymously. This isn't allowed anymore. No reputable newspaper or any newspaper anywhere allows anonymous commenting. But this is going back to 2008 when the idea of posting online was a new thing with the Wild West, unregulated. There were vicious comments being left directed at me and my supporters and anyone who believed what we were saying. I mean, when I say vicious, I mean terribly vicious, calling me every name in the book, a child exploiter. Oh, my son, my 15-year-old son helped me with my work. You name it, I was called that. And using back-end tools available to any amateur, I figured out using IP addresses. And if any of your listeners don't know what an IP address, it's basically a computer version of a caller ID.
Okay.
Okay. It's every computer has an IP address. And using IP addresses, I figured out that those vicious comments were coming from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers headquarters locally here in New Orleans.
Oh my gosh.
So talk about a discovery. So here they were. They thought they were so clever, leaving these vicious, ugly comments online about me and thought no one could see that. Turned out we were looking at them. If I could rewind the clock, I would have waited a couple of weeks and collected these comments, okay, and then like throwing them at him. But as soon as I discovered it, I picked up the phone. I called a local television station here in town and offered them an exclusive, and they did a big story about it. And to this day, it's been 20 years. To this day, a lot of people remember when we caught the Army Corps red-handed doing this really bad behavior.
Oh, that's terrible.
Hmm.
So I'm looking at your website, sandyrosenthal.net, and you help people beat the big guys now. That I think that is so wonderful. So you had no special training, but you stood up to a mammoth federal agency and won. Gosh, that is astounding. So can you give an example of anyone who used some of your tools to take on a big guy?
I'd love to. One of my favorite is a homeowners association, which are known to be bullies.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was helping a young woman stand up to a homeowners association, and then another was helping this young woman in the Washington D.C. area of all places. She wanted to have what's called it's a garden where butterflies and rabbits can come into it. There's a name for it. But it's not your standard grass. Okay, in fact, grass is the last thing you would put. And she wanted to have her nature's garden. And her a similarly thing with a homeowners association, a neighborhood association, as opposed to a condo association. They told her, no, you have to rip that out and put in turf, grass. Well, she appealed to the legislature, and they changed the law saying anyone in this county in Maryland can put whatever they want in their front yard. But
Mhm.
I gave her the tools to fight this, and that's just a couple. More recently, if any of your listeners are birders and are familiar with purple martins, I helped an elderly couple that wanted to put up birdhouses in their backyard, and one of their neighbors complained about there were some bird droppings, and I complained to the mayor who filed criminal charges against this elderly couple. Well, I couldn't take it. I stepped in and I created a community of support for them. And that case is actually ongoing, even though the mayor can at any time drop the case. But from nothing, through my experience, I helped them come up with a community of 500 followers
Wow.
on Facebook, and nearly 1,400 people have written to that mayor asking him, please drop this case. So
Wow.
that's been really fulfilling. I never heard of a purple martin before I heard about this case, but
Yeah.
I just took one look at that and said, I got to do something because
Oh,
there's one thing I know how to do. I can mobilize a community to do good.
wow. You are just an angel. And you also have an organization called levees.org.
Mhm.
And that is a public education nonprofit founded by you
Mhm.
and your then 15-year-old son.
Yeah.
And you provide education on why the levees broke in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. But you also work with other communities who have questionable levee practices. Tell us something about that.
There are, as you mentioned earlier, the majority of the nation's population lives in counties protected by levees. That's a whopping two-thirds, nearly two-thirds. So, and a lot of these communities are in Chicago, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, and interestingly, California has, due to their levee problems, has more people at risk than Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, and Florida combined.
Wow.
And what their problems are is if they get levee failure, they'll get saltwater intrusion
Hmm.
into that fertile California valley, which would be absolutely catastrophic.
Yeah.
So prior to Hurricane Katrina, most people had never even heard of a levee except for the song.
Yeah.
I drove my Chevy to the levee, but no one knew what a levee was. And they're actually pretty much everywhere. We don't really pay attention to them. They're not as massive as dams, not nowhere near as expensive to build, and they're often just made of earth.
Hmm.
Other than levees is the most common levees. So one of the main things we did to gather awareness of what was going on in New Orleans was let people know that you've got levees right there in your own backyard, especially if you live near water. And most people do. For either historically, we've always built near water, either for irrigation, navigation, and more recently in the 20th and 21st centuries, we just like water. We like living near water. We like living near lakes,
Oh, yeah.
and
I
yeah,
definitely do. Uh,
aesthetically.
yeah, and water calms me too. So I like being near water,
It's
definitely.
raining outside right now. The sound of the rain is calming.
Yeah, yeah. So did you go to Mount Holyoke?
I did. I
Yeah.
did. Graduated class of 79.
Okay. What a great school. Yeah, I have some friends who also went there, and I'm so glad that they recognized your hard work. So, if you could do it all again, what would you have done differently?
I would have talked louder and longer. I had what anyone would, in today's day and age, would call imposter syndrome. Here I was. I wasn't an engineer. I wasn't an attorney. I had no political experience, and I was doing work that required knowledge of all three, even though I was a total novice. Also, no media experience. What I did find out, though, is if you see a problem and you speak up about it, these experts will come to you because they'll see that you need their expertise. They'll see that I need to figure out how to, with a click of a mouse, send off a letter to your congressman, or with a one phone call, how to, to have an effect in your local government. I needed help there, and so sure enough, not very long after I started talking and complaining, experts started calling me. Some of them from other states was seeing what I was doing and offered their expertise. So to your listeners who see a problem and feel there's nothing they can do, and feel like they don't know all the answers, you don't need to know the answers. You just need to ask the questions. Ask a question and make a valid point, and the experts will come to you. They will find you. And here's the best part: you don't need to pay them. You don't even need to send them a gift basket. Glad. They're just glad that you use their advice. That's why they
Interesting.
gave it to you, so that you would use it.
All right. So, what did you learn about yourself in this experience?
Well, I'm not so sure I learned a lot as much as my husband of 47 years did. So he likes to joke that should he ever leave me for another woman, God help him. What he discovered about me, and I may have known already, is I'm very dogged. I'm a bulldog. I
Yeah.
won't let go. I won't give up. Sometimes, maybe there are times where I didn't give up even when it was really time to give
Mm,
up.
mm.
But the problem with that, if you do give up, then you'll never know what you could have accomplished and what you could have achieved. I guess it's a matter of a little dose of common sense to
Yeah.
know when you push something far enough. So I found out I'm very dogged, very persistent. And I guess I found out that I used to think I was a bit of a loner. I never really enjoyed or felt I was very good at managing people. There are some people who are really good at managing big teams of people, but I found that online managing teams, I found that not as difficult. So I learned that about myself. You can manage teams digitally. I mean, not digitally. What's the word I'm looking for? Online, with
Mhm.
email or with
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah, interesting. So the Army Corps of Engineers got away with it. What changed in New Orleans as a result of your work?
But they did financially get away with it, and the Army Corps wouldn't have had to pay that money. That would have come out of all the taxpayers in this country. I mean, that money comes from that doesn't come out of thin air. The Army Corps was called out responsible though for the flood damage and the levee failures, and a lot of changes have been made in this country because of what happened to us. Again, two-thirds of the country lives in counties protected by levees, so you don't have to worry about the type of walls that broke here in New Orleans being in your neighborhood. They don't build those anymore. And if they did build those, I don't think there are many eye walls in the country because eye walls are usually those are the walls that failed. The ones with the steel sheet piling driven into them. They're called eye walls. Those are usually used for cattle and farmland. So those eye walls aren't being built anymore. The Army Corps of Engineers has also changed the way levees are inspected, not just in New Orleans, but throughout the whole country. So if you live in America, you are safer today because of what happened to us in New Orleans, and that's a good thing. So in many ways, this flooding event of New Orleans was a historic event in that it put America on a different path.
Wow, you have got to feel so great about that.
Yeah, in fact, we did nominate a breach site to the National Register of Historic Places because of that. Because of Katrina was a linchpin moment, and it's currently this nomination can be viewed on our website at any time.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I see some things behind you that look like medals. Are those from connected with your work?
Those are medals for my book.
Oh, tell us about the awards
The
you
the
won.
let me see, the one of them is I think the good choices award for books, and the other one I might have to get up and look at it. I earned those 5 years ago.
Beautiful.
Although the book that was the first book edition of my book was released 5 years ago, and then the second edition, which you spoke about from last August, was actually a special anniversary edition with a new cover and new foreword.
Mm, that's really beautiful. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. I found out 2 years ago by accident, totally by accident, that the young students in engineering schools are not being taught about failures. I mean, how do you learn from your failures if you don't find out about failures? And so I would have assumed that it would be standard operating procedure for young women and men in engineering schools. There's some 200 plus schools in the nation would be automatically receiving instruction on failures. So my organization has spearheaded an effort. It's called EFE, Engineering Failure and Education. And it is our goal that all 200 plus schools in this country routinely, on a regular basis, offer instruction to students on failures and lessons learned. I mean, how else are you going to learn? How else are you going to learn to do things right?
Absolutely. My gosh. Good for you. I am so impressed by you. And your children and grandchildren must be so proud of you too.
My grandchildren are a little young still. They're ages 5 and 9.
But they will
I,
know. They
but
will
I'll
know.
make sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I just love how you help beat the big guys and you didn't have prior training in this. What a story. I'm just so blown away by you and your
Well,
work.
all the big guys are just bullies, but no different from the third grade, fourth grade playground. No different. They're bigger, bigger, but they're not smarter.
So
And
when you were young, were you the type of person to take on bullies in the schoolyard?
No, no, I was a shy little thing. I was tiny. I was always the shortest and the smallest. And I was very shy. But thank goodness somewhere along the line, I found out shyness is a liability. It's something you've got to get over. Now, no
Mm,
matter what it takes, get over your shyness. It is not an asset. In
wow.
any stretch. So no, I wasn't. I also know that the bullies didn't bother with me because I was not fun to pick on. I was
Oh
just too
God.
quiet. I was too quiet. I didn't give them the feedback that they wanted. But I know what a bully is.
Yeah.
And because they're big, they think they're invincible. And they are, and because they're usually not smarter, that when they make a mistake, it's a big mistake. For example, when I caught the Army Corps sitting at their desks harassing me online.
Yeah.
And I did it with free tools available to any amateur. I
Yeah.
didn't hire a company to do that. And that's just one example. I can give you more.
Yeah.
But the bullies are going to make mistakes. And it's just a matter of waiting and watching. And when they find that mistake, uh, scream it far and wide.
All right. Well, I ask all of my guests the following question. What do you do to become your best version?
For me, it means getting some sort of physical release or exercise every day, even if it's just taking the dog for a walk.
Mhm.
Get out there, use those muscles, because I have found that if you sit at your desk all day, your problems only get bigger. But if you get up, go to take your dog for a walk or go for a little run or a swim, those problems will shrink.
Mm.
They won't go away, but all of a sudden they become manageable. And
Yeah,
it's that physical exercise.
because of the mind-body connection.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, I agree with you. Even if I'm just sitting at my desk all day, I get up and dance or walk around or go outside or walk down the block, and I instantly feel more clear-headed and grounded and centered. So I agree with you on that for sure. So you can find Sandy at sandyrosenthal.net. You can read about levees.org and how to take on the big guys in your communities, how to check on the safety of your levees, because most of us are living near one and would be affected by a failure. So I thank you for your public service. My gosh, you're keeping millions of people safer. And I am so impressed. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you for having me.